A sickening silence fell over Buckingham Palace as the banana struck the Black Royal Guard's chest. The racist tourist high-fived his friends, congratulating himself on the prank. No one expected what happened next, least of all the tourist himself, who would soon face both legal charges and a response so powerful that the king himself would request a private meeting with Sergeant Taylor. Comment below where you're watching from, and subscribe to see the full story of how a ceremonial soldier changed British protocol forever. The morning had begun at 4:30 a.m. Sergeant Marcus Taylor's disciplined routine, 5-mile run through London's empty streets, followed by an hour of meticulous uniform preparation. Every brass button polished to mirror shine, every pleat in his scarlet tunic precisely pressed, his bearskin cap positioned exactly 1 inch above his eyebrows. By 8 a.m. he had assumed his post at the east entrance to Buckingham Palace, his 6'3" frame standing in perfect ceremonial stillness, despite the growing summer heat. It was Monday, July 15th, the height of tourist season, and the crowds were already forming, cameras ready to capture the iconic image of the stoic royal guards. Among the tourists that morning was a group of 5 young men from Manchester. Their ringleader, 27-year-old Nicholas Barton, had already consumed several beers despite the early hour, his expensive designer clothes and loud voice suggesting someone accustomed to commanding attention. His friends formed a semicircle around him, filming with their phones, eager participants in whatever spectacle Barton planned next. "Watch this," Barton slurred to his companions, pulling a banana from his backpack. "I'm going to make the monkey dance." Several nearby tourists heard the comment, their expressions shifting from curiosity to discomfort. A mother quickly ushered her young children away. An elderly veteran with a regimental pin on his lapel stepped forward with a stern, "Young man," before being cut off by Barton's dismissive wave. "It's just a joke, Grandpa," Barton sneered. "These guards are just statues anyway. They can't do anything." With that, he peeled the banana halfway and took aim at Sergeant Taylor, whose dark skin stood in stark contrast to the bright scarlet of his uniform. "Go back to the jungle where you belong," Barton shouted, hurling the fruit with surprising accuracy. The banana struck Taylor squarely in the chest, leaving a yellow smear against the immaculate red fabric before falling to the ground. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Tourists froze mid-photograph. Children pointed in confusion. Several people gasped audibly. Sergeant Marcus Taylor did not move. His eyes remained fixed forward in the 1,000-yard stare perfected through countless hours of ceremonial duty. His breathing showed no change in rhythm. To casual observers, it appeared the trained soldier had simply ignored the racist provocation, as royal guards had been trained to do for generations. Barton erupted in laughter, high-fiving his friends as they captured his victory on their phones. "See? Told you. They're just robots in fancy dress. The monkey didn't even flinch." What Nicholas Barton didn't know, what no civilian present that morning could have known, was that 3 weeks earlier, the protocol for royal guards had undergone a significant but unpublicized revision. Following several incidents involving racist and xenophobic harassment of guards, a new directive had been quietly implemented. Guards were now authorized to break ceremonial stance in response to racial abuse or hate speech. Colonel James Harding, commander of the King's Guard Regiment, had personally briefed all personnel on the new protocol. "We stand for tradition," he had told them, "but we do not stand for hatred. Your dignity as soldiers and as human beings takes precedence." Sergeant Taylor was well aware of this directive. In the 7 seconds after the banana struck his uniform, while maintaining his outward stillness, he made a decision that would reverberate far beyond Buckingham Palace. With military precision, Taylor stepped forward off his mark, a movement so unexpected that several tourists gasped. He marched 3 paces to where the banana lay, bent at the waist, and picked it up. Then, with the same measured cadence, he approached Nicholas Barton, who had suddenly stopped laughing. "Sir?" Taylor spoke, his voice calm but carrying the unmistakable authority of a senior non-commissioned officer. "Racial abuse and assault of a King's Guard is a criminal offense under Section 31 of the Public Order Act, expanded under the Hate Crime Amendment of 2023. Barton's smirk faltered. His friends lowered their phones. "Palace security has been notified," Taylor continued, his gaze now directly meeting Barton's. "They will detain you until Metropolitan Police arrive. You will be formally charged." As if on cue, 2 uniformed palace security officers appeared, moving efficiently through the crowd toward the unfolding scene. What happened next transformed the incident from a local security matter into international news. Instead of immediately returning to his post, Sergeant Taylor remained where he stood, facing Barton directly. When he spoke again, his voice carried across the now silent courtyard. "Before they take you away, I want you to know something." Taylor's tone shifted subtly, still professional, but with a personal quality that had been absent in his official warning. "This uniform represents 350 years of history. I've worn it with pride for 8 years. Before that, I served in Helmand Province in Basra. My grandfather wore it before me, after fighting at Normandy. My family has been in England since 1948, when my great-grandparents came from Jamaica as part of the Windrush generation." Taylor paused, the banana still held at his side. "They helped rebuild this country after the war. My family has bled for this nation, and you thought it was funny to throw a banana at me." The crowd had grown completely still. Phones recorded silently. Children watched wide-eyed. Parents used the moment to whisper quiet lessons about respect. "This uniform doesn't make me any less of a man. It doesn't make me unable to feel disrespect or humiliation. What it does is give me the discipline to respond with dignity rather than anger." With that, Taylor placed the banana in Barton's shirt pocket, turned with military precision, and returned to his post, resuming his ceremonial stance. Nicholas Barton, his face now flushed with shame rather than alcohol, offered no resistance as palace security led him away. His friends, suddenly eager to distance themselves from the incident, melted into the crowd, their earlier bravado replaced by embarrassed silence. By noon, the first video of the incident had appeared on social media. By evening, it had been viewed more than 8 million times. Sergeant Taylor and Royal Guard dignity were trending worldwide. The footage captured not just the racist act and Taylor's response, but also the reactions of the crowd afterward. Spontaneous applause that built from a few hesitant claps to a resounding ovation. It captured the elderly veteran who approached Taylor's post, standing at attention and offering a formal salute. It captured children asking their parents questions about what they had witnessed, and parents struggling to find the right words to explain both the ugliness and dignity they had just observed. What the videos didn't capture were the events that unfolded behind the scenes in the hours and days that followed. Colonel Harding received notification of the incident within minutes. After reviewing security footage, he immediately contacted Buckingham Palace staff, who in turn briefed the King's private secretary. By that afternoon, Nicholas Barton had been formally charged with racial harassment, assault, and public disorder. His employer, a prestigious London financial firm, issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions and announcing his immediate termination. But it was the palace's response that took many by surprise. The following morning, as Sergeant Taylor prepared for duty, he was informed that his presence was requested, not at his usual post, but in a private reception room within the palace itself. There, to his astonishment, he found not only Colonel Harding but the King's private secretary and the King himself. "Sergeant Taylor," the King began, dispensing with usual formalities, "I wanted to personally express my regret for what you experienced yesterday, and my profound appreciation for how you handled it." The conversation that followed lasted nearly 30 minutes. The King asked Taylor about his family history, his military service, and his experiences as a black man in the Royal Guard. He listened intently as Taylor spoke of occasional subtle racism and the more overt incidents like yesterday's. "Your response," the King said finally, "embodied the very best traditions of the Guard: dignity, discipline, and moral courage. But it also highlighted something that must change." That change came swiftly. By week's end, Buckingham Palace issued a formal statement announcing a revision to Royal Guard protocol. While the statement carefully acknowledged the importance of the Guard's ceremonial traditions, it explicitly stated that personnel were now officially authorized to respond to racist abuse or hate speech. For Sergeant Marcus Taylor, the aftermath brought mixed feelings. While grateful for the institutional support, he found the public attention uncomfortable. He had not acted for publicity or praise, but simply because, in that moment, his integrity as a soldier and a man had demanded a response. In the days following the incident, his phone rang constantly with interview requests from media outlets around the world. His social media accounts were flooded with messages, most supportive, some hateful. His wife, Dr. Amara Taylor, a pediatric surgeon at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital, fielded calls from old friends and distant relatives who had seen the news. When interviewed weeks later, after his identity had become public knowledge, Taylor expressed a simple hope. Maybe the next time someone looks at a guard, they'll see not just the uniform, but the person wearing it. Nicholas Barton's legal case concluded with a 6-month suspended sentence, a substantial fine directed to anti-racism charities, and a mandatory education program. In a statement issued through his attorney, he expressed profound regret for his actions and apologized directly to Sergeant Taylor. What few people knew was that Taylor had specifically requested leniency in Barton's sentencing, writing a private letter to the magistrate suggesting that rehabilitation would be more beneficial than severe punishment. "Hatred is often born of ignorance," Taylor wrote. "Education, not punishment, is the more effective remedy." 3 months after the incident, an unexpected letter arrived at Taylor's home, handwritten, postmarked from Manchester. It was from Nicholas Barton. "I don't expect or deserve your forgiveness," Barton had written. "What I did was inexcusable. But I want you to know that your response that day forced me to confront ugly truths about myself that I'd never acknowledged. The educational program the court ordered has opened my eyes to histories and perspectives I was never taught. I am genuinely committed to changing. Your dignity in the face of my disgusting behavior showed me a better path forward than I deserved." Taylor kept the letter private, sharing it only with his wife and Colonel Harding. Whether he responded remains known only to them. Public reaction to the incident proved revealing of deeper currents in British society. While the vast majority expressed support for Taylor and condemnation of the Racist Act, a vocal minority criticized the breaking of tradition and protocol, arguing that guards should remain stoic regardless of provocation. This division prompted wider discussions about which traditions truly deserve preservation and at what cost. Historians pointed out that the ceremonial practices of the Guard had evolved numerous times throughout history, adapting to changing times while maintaining their essential dignity. Dr. Eleanor Wright, professor of British cultural history at Oxford, observed in a widely shared essay, "The essence of the Royal Guard is not in standing motionless while suffering abuse. It's in exemplifying the highest standards of British military excellence and moral character." Sergeant Taylor's response honored that essence far more faithfully than blind adherence to an outdated expectation of passive endurance. Military veterans, particularly those from minority backgrounds, shared their own experiences, creating a broader conversation about racism in the armed forces and British society at large. Several former guards came forward with stories similar to Taylor's, though few had responded with such composure. One retired guard who had served in the 1980s revealed in a television interview that he had once been spat upon by a tourist who used a racial slur. "I maintained my position, as was expected," the veteran recalled, "but something inside me broke that day. I left the service 6 months later. Watching Sergeant Taylor respond with such dignity, being allowed to respond, felt like vindication 40 years too late." 3 months after the incident, Sergeant Taylor received another unexpected honor. The Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst requested his assistance in developing training materials addressing racism and appropriate responses for ceremonial units. His experience would become a case study in balancing tradition with human dignity. The educational initiative extended beyond military circles. Schools across Britain incorporated discussions of the incident into their curriculum, using it as a springboard for conversations about respect, racism, and moral courage. Taylor received hundreds of letters from school children who had studied his response, many asking thoughtful questions about how he had found the strength to respond with such restraint and dignity. On the anniversary of the incident, journalists sought follow-up interviews, but Taylor declined most requests. He had returned to his duties, preferring to let his actions that day speak for themselves. When pressed by one persistent reporter about how he remained so calm in the face of such provocative racism, Taylor's answer was characteristically straightforward. "I wasn't calm inside," he admitted. "I felt anger, humiliation, all of it. But my training taught me that the strongest response isn't always the loudest or most aggressive. Sometimes speaking truth with dignity changes more minds than losing your composure ever could." The incident also prompted some unexpected changes within the Royal Guard itself. The percentage of applicants from minority backgrounds increased significantly in the year following the incident, with many explicitly citing Taylor as their inspiration. The Guard's recruitment materials began featuring more diverse faces, silently acknowledging that the face of Britain's most iconic military unit was evolving to reflect the nation it served. Today, tourists visiting Buckingham Palace might notice a subtle change in the information leaflets distributed at entry points. Among the facts about the history and traditions of the Royal Guard, there now appears a new paragraph. "The Guard stand as symbols of British heritage and discipline. Their ceremonial stillness represents not emotional detachment, but the highest standard of self-control and dignity. They deserve the same respect they demonstrate in their duty. As for Sergeant Marcus Taylor, he continues his service with the King's Guard. On most days, tourists pass by his post, taking photos and sometimes testing his famous composure with silly faces or gestures. He maintains his stoic stance, as tradition demands. But occasionally, a visitor will approach with genuine respect, perhaps a nod of acknowledgement or a quiet, "Thank you for your service." In these moments, those watching closely might catch the subtlest break in protocol, a nearly imperceptible nod in return. It's a small change to a centuries-old tradition. But as Sergeant Taylor demonstrated that summer morning, sometimes the smallest changes carry the most profound meaning, in the words of the elderly veteran who had witnessed the incident firsthand. What that young man did wasn't about breaking tradition. It was about honor, the very thing those traditions were meant to uphold in the first place. What would you have done in Sergeant Taylor's position? Would you have responded differently? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and respect for all, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that reveal the true character behind the ceremonial facade. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll never miss our new uploads.